set foot for the first time in our country.
Up to this day, the Beatles remain one of the most important bands in the history of popular music. They were pioneers in musical experimentation and covered a wide range of genres such as rock, pop, folk, classical music, and psychedelia. In addition to using cutting-edge recording technology to create new sounds. It is thanks to the creativity, innovation, and passion they put into their compositions that, to this day, the Beatles songs continue to be performed and re-recorded by artists around the world. However, the reasons and events behind the band's most popular themes, which allowed them to compose these pieces of art that withstand the test of time, are not as well known. Remember to subscribe and leave your like to continue making more videos. These are stories behind the songs of the Beatles. Number 9. All You Need Is Love.
All you need is love.
This song was written during the Cold War in the late 60s as a protest of peace and love that quickly became the anthem of the hippie movement. The lyrics focus solely on the expression of love as a universal concept and as the only way to see the world. In the same way, it seeks unity against war and was well received by thousands of young people affiliated with the movement. The song was composed by John Lennon in just 10 days as a commission from the BBC to participate in a television program called Our World. Historically, this would be the first live broadcast via satellite and reached more than 400 million people around the world. The Our World program brought together recognized personalities from 14 countries such as the painter Pablo Picasso, opera singer Maria Callas, and ranchera music singer Antonio Aguilar, among many others, who represented their nations during the broadcast. The live performance of this song featured instruments from special guests, such as Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Eric Clapton, among others. All You Need Is Love is historically the first song that was broadcast live worldwide, and to which the BBC in London asked the Beatles to be a representative song that could be understood all over the world, for which it opens with a fragment of the French national anthem La Marseillaise, which was already a recognizable anthem in the world. At the same time, they showed their solidarity with the host country of the program. Number 8. Help.
When I was younger, so much younger than today.
The lyrics of the song talk about the stress John Lennon experienced due to the rapid success of the band in the early years of the group. In an interview with Playboy, Lennon commented that he was tasked with finishing this song to present it in the movie they were filming with them as protagonists, and that later he would realize that by writing this song he was actually screaming for help. John Lennon also confessed that at that time he was going through a stage of physical and personal insecurity, and that later it would become comparable to the period in Elvis Presley's career, where he gained a considerable amount of weight. The movie intended for the original song was originally going to be called 8 Arms to Hold You, a trivial film where the band members would be chased all over Europe under the pretext of obtaining Ringo Starr's magical rings. However, the title and script did not end up convincing the band, so in the end, it was decided to use the name of the song that John Lennon was working on at the time. When it was released as a single in July 1965, it quickly positioned itself as the number 1 most listened to song in the United States and the United Kingdom. This would be the 10th Beatles song to have this success and reflects the band's ability to combine simple lyrics with catchy melodies. Number 7. Love Me Do.
Love me do. You know I love you.
This song was the group's first single. When it was released in 1962, at first it only reached number 17 of the most listened to songs of the time. However, it would gradually become one of the classics that catapulted the band to worldwide fame. The song was written by Paul McCartney when he was 16 years old, supposedly inspired by his girlfriend Iris Caldwell, and later John Lennon added the sound of a harmonica in the middle part of the song, which would become one of the band's most characteristic sounds. The theme came to be recorded with up to 3 different drummers since the producer was not satisfied. So Ringo Starr ended up playing the tambourine on this song. However, Ringo comments that for him this was more important than anything else, since it was the first time they would be on a record. McCartney, for his part, assured that this song helped them a lot to become composers, since until that moment they only dedicated themselves to covering classics from the early days of rock, and it was not until their first shows in Liverpool and Hamburg that they tried their luck with their own compositions. Number 6. Come Together. The song was written by John Lennon, who created the phrase, "Come together, join the party," as a jingle for the electoral campaign of Timothy Leary, one of his acquaintances who was a psychologist and an LSD advocate and who ran for governor of California against Ronald Reagan in 1969. However, Leary was arrested when it was discovered he possessed marijuana and cigarettes and had to abandon his political career, which led Lennon to change the lyrics and adapt them for the legendary Abbey Road album. The song had a strong influence on Chuck Berry's music to the extent of using one of his lines completely. And although the phrase "here come old flat top" in Chuck Berry's song talked about a car model with fins, and John Lennon jokingly describes an eccentric character who could be a hippie, it was reason enough for the music publisher to sue him, and they ended up in court. At the end of the legal battle, Lennon committed to recording the rock and roll album with some of the songs that belonged to the plaintiff. This song was composed during times of greatest tension among the band members, and where Lennon had such an arrogant attitude that he preferred to set aside the contributions of his colleagues, taking the initiative to compose himself on the instruments that corresponded to them. Number 5. I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Tell you something, I think you'll understand.
It is a teenage love song, one of the Beatles' cheesiest, and was written especially for the American audience. The main concern of the band's representative was that they could not record in the United States if Capitol Records considered that their British style would not be to the liking of the American public. The song was written in the house of Paul McCartney's then-girlfriend, actress Jane Asher, who had a basement equipped for playing piano. In an interview, John Lennon assures that this song was also composed hand-in-hand between him and McCartney, since in those days their ideas fit naturally and allowed them to compose one under the nose of the other. After changing some words with a British accent and the simple but successful use of love phrases, they managed to make this song reach and stay 5 weeks at number 1 on the list of the most listened to in the United States, thus marking the beginning of Beatlemania throughout the American continent. Number 4. Here Comes the Sun. The song was written by George Harrison at the house of his friend and fellow musician Eric Clapton, after having escaped from a meeting about the band's new record label, which he found boring and stressful. Harrison said that inspiration came to him while walking through Clapton's gardens. He took one of his acoustic guitars to start with the song and later finished it during his vacation in Sardinia. 2 weeks later, he would present it at Abbey Road Studios on Ringo Starr's 29th birthday. This is one of the few songs where the 4 members of the band did not participate, as at the time of its recording John Lennon was recovering from a car accident he suffered in Scotland. The song is known for its optimistic tone and message of hope. It reflects a strong influence of Eastern spirituality and mysticism that George Harrison was exploring at the time, applying it both in the musical structure and in the message of the song itself. Number 3, Let It Be.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me.
For several years it was believed that this song was a religious theme about the Virgin Mary, until Paul McCartney revealed in an interview that it was about a sad episode in his life. The bassist declared that this song was written after dreaming of his mother Mary McCartney, who had died when he was 14 years old. And although Paul did not remember exactly the words of his mother in the dream, he remembered that the sense of her message was, "Let it be." The song portrays the figure of Mary as a maternal figure who approaches the disturbed subject and tries to calm him so that he can endure the difficult moments of life. The song was written during the beginning of various political and military conflicts around the world, at the same time that the band was experiencing artistic differences and separate visions of new projects that would end in the dissolution of the band. However, this song has been interpreted by its fans as a farewell song, but leaving them a message of hope. Number 2, Yesterday.
I need a place to hide away. Oh, I believe in yesterday.
It is one of the few songs where the lyrics and music are attributed to only one of the band members. It was written by Paul McCartney, who in his biography commented that he composed the song from a dream he had at the house of his girlfriend Jane Asher, and upon waking up he quickly went to the piano, turned on a recorder and played the melody to not forget it along with his dream. Initially, McCartney was afraid of plagiarizing someone else's composition. He said, "For a month I went to see people in the music business, asking them if they knew that melody. It was as if I had taken something I found to the police. I thought that if in a few weeks no one claimed it, then it would be mine." John Lennon comments that the song was incomplete for several months, that it bothered several musicians because it was not played completely and that they could not find a title that worked. So as a joke they called it Scrambled Eggs, and they left it like that for the long period of its creation, until one morning Paul got up, completed the lyrics, and the title was summarized in a single word, "Yesterday."
Had to go, I don't know. She wouldn't say.
According to Forbes magazine, it is one of the songs that has generated the most money in the history of music, both in terms of sales and royalties, and that has allowed Paul McCartney to have a fortune valued at €490 million. This nostalgic ballad about lost love is notably different from the rest of the band's songs and has achieved the Guinness record as one of the songs that has had the most re-recordings in the history of popular music. At the same time, it also holds the record for the most radio broadcasts worldwide. Number 1, Hey Jude.
Hey Jude, don't be afraid.
At the end of 1968, John Lennon and his then-wife Cynthia Powell were going through a complicated divorce that severely affected their 5-year-old son Julian Lennon. Paul McCartney, who considered himself at that time the spiritual uncle of the young man, set out to compose and give him a song to cheer him up. The original title of the song was Hey Jules, and years later when it was included in the White Album it changed the name to Hey Jude because it sounded better. John Lennon always thought that the song was dedicated to him since he clearly identified with the words of comfort and support that were transmitted to him during the separation from his ex-wife. It was not until several years after its creation that Paul told the true reason why it was composed. The song has a duration of 7 minutes and 11 seconds, which makes it one of the longest songs of the Beatles. However, this unusual duration in a pop song of the time complicated its selection for the radio, since the format did not allow more than 3.5 minutes, so a shorter version had to be made so that stations would not refuse to broadcast it. In 1996, Julian Lennon, at 33 years old, paid £25,000 at an auction for the recording notes of Hey Jude. Just as he bought some objects of his father, his manager declared that he was gathering these objects that he considered family relics for personal reasons. There is no doubt that Hey Jude is an iconic song that highlights Paul McCartney's compositional ability and his capacity to transmit emotion and comfort. At the same time, it has become an immortal song that has been and will continue to be performed all over the world. If you liked the video, share it with your friends and family so they can learn more about these topics. Remember that you can leave us in the comments which other bands or singers you would like to know stories behind their songs. Until next time.